I just cheated on my MacBook Pro for about 2 weeks with this less expensive alternative, and I liked it a lot. This is the Huawei MateBook X Pro. It costs about half what I paid for this one. But when the company sent it over for me to test out, I was more than a little skeptical that it could fully replace my tried and true Apple laptop. I've used MacBooks for, well, forever, and there's no way that this could possibly work. Or could it? MacBooks were once the most powerful, well-built laptops around, and very few competitors even came close. Apple's laptops are still high-end machines, but the huge gap between MacBooks and the rest of the laptop world, well, that's almost completely disappeared. Now, that might be bad news for Apple, but it's great news for anyone who wants a really powerful notebook with long battery life, who doesn't happen to have a spare $3,000 or so to blow. Now, of course, there were a handful of trade-offs, but the number of features I lost in transition wasn't nearly as long as you might think, or as long as it might have been even just a few years ago. So let me tell you about what I liked. On this machine, battery life. I mean, Apple loves to tout the all-day battery life of its MacBooks with up to 10 hours of video playback on a single charge, but I gotta tell you, I have never gotten that much out of it. The MateBook X, on the other hand, somehow managed to top that thanks to its giant battery, with up to 12 hours of video playback from a full charge. Now, that is really something. Then there's the screen. The MateBook X manages to top the MacBook Pro's screen, and it makes it look easy. At 3,000 by 2,000 pixels, it's even sharper than the 15-inch MacBook Pro. And it's a touch screen too. It measures just a hair shy of 14 inches. So that falls in between Apple's 13-inch and 15-inch MacBook Pro models. And even though Apple's laptop has a slightly higher maximum brightness, that is a minor compromise. Oh, and did I mention the touchscreen? Apple, why, oh why, can't I do this with you? Bezels. The MacBook Pro is a good-looking notebook, to be sure, but nobody's going to give it any awards for thin bezels. The MateBook X has bezels so thin they practically disappear, and that, well, it blows me away. It has a 91% screen-to-body ratio. That means just 9% of the display isn't an active screen. It managed this feat by moving the webcam off its perch at the top of the display and down into this tiny little pop-up button on the keyboard. That's really cool for security too. When the button's down, well, nobody's spying on you. I can live with that. Possibly the biggest difference of all between the MacBook Pro and the MateBook X is the price. The MateBook X's specs, the processor, screen, size, memory, etc., well, they don't match up perfectly with any one MacBook Pro model. But to get a comparable Apple laptop, you can expect to pay at least $2,000. The MateBook X comes in at a much more reasonably priced $1,200. Now, if there's one thing I learned from my whole little random experiment here, it's that laptops have come a long way in just the past few years. Before, well, nothing could tear me away from my precious MacBook. But high-powered notebooks now, well, they are cheaper than they have ever been, and you don't need to look for an Apple logo to find something fantastic. Read more about this, including what I did not like, in the column with the video at usatoday.com. I'm Jennifer Jolly, and this is Tech Now.